listeners, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I am the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended Podcast, and the founder of the Blended Pledge. And we're going to be talking about it. I know everybody's kind of mentioning it today. It's Giving Tuesday. We've got a couple of things to talk about around that. But my trade bestie, Audrey Ross, is here with me today, and we've got a pretty cool show for you. We're going to be talking about cheese. Yes, we're going to be talking about cheese and how it got stuck at the border, and you're going to want to know. But we're also going to be talking about predictions, and what else we're going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about a warehouse operated by women. But first, let's get to what's happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain. And even before that, let's talk a little bit about our show sponsor. So our show sponsor is the Secret Society of Supply Chain. Now, if you haven't heard about it, it's our community membership group, and we are relaunching this in February. We are going to have a group for everyone. We're going to have a free version. We're going to have exciting new networking events. We've got a brand new program for our Women in Supply Chain virtual monthly meetup and membership as well. So head over to Secret Society of Supply Chain, go and input your email so that we can send you the newsletter and you can be one of the first to know and sign up and get some of the perks and some of the things that we've been putting together for you. So head over there. All right. What have we got for you? Well, we've got a brand new episode, but it's not a Let's Talk Supply Chain episode. It's a brand new episode of Blended. Now, if you haven't checked out the Blended podcast, it's over on Apple and Spotify. Look for the colorful circles because there's a lot of blended family podcast that I didn't realize when I named it Blended. But anyways, episode 50, generational diversity. Now, this one's a good one. We had guests from all different walks of life, all different ages, talking about generational diversity. And I highly recommend you go and check it out because I know that we're all working with people from all different walks of life. And this really shares a lot of authentic perspectives and how people are thinking about things. And I know for me, it really opened my mind. So really thankful for all the guests that shared authentically on that particular episode. So go check it out either on the blendedpledge.org website or on Apple and Spotify. All right, we've got some live events coming up. We've got LogTech Live with Eric Johnson. Now that's happening at 10 a.m. Eastern on Friday. And he's talking about tech-driven sales strategies for freight forwarders. And this one's going to be a good one. I mean, Eric is always sharing some of the top news trends that they are covering at the Journal of Commerce. He's always got a dad joke for us as well. Plus, he's got some really good conversations with some industry experts. And so you want to go check it out. Click the attend button, even if you can't attend live, and we will send you the recording. Next, Thursday, December 12th at noon. That's right. We're doing a lunch and learn with Reveal. Now we're talking about the hardest hit businesses and biggest impacts of the latest FedEx and UPS rate rise. Now, if this has happened to you, which I'm pretty sure there's a lot of you going through this right now, you're going to want to tune in because we're going to be talking about what you need to look for, the biggest impacts, what it means to your business, and how you can navigate through it without necessarily a huge impact to your business. So click the attend button. Even if you can't attend live, we will definitely send you the recording on that one. Next, on December 18th, we've got Supply Chain Unfiltered with Christine Barnhart, Bridging, Planning, and Execution in Supply Chain, Insights from Eric Wilson. Click the attend button. We'll send you the link if you can't attend live, but Christine's always got an amazing show, and I can't wait to hear what Eric has to say. All right, what else have we got? In-person events. So Manifest is coming up February 10th through 12th. I'm going to be there. I'm recording some episodes on site. If you want to be featured, make sure to reach out to us and let us know. And then I'm also doing the same thing at Home Delivery World, May 21st and 22nd in Nashville. And I can't wait to see all of you. So if you want to be featured, if you want us to record an episode in your booth, let us know. We can have all your branding in the background. It's going to be great. All right. So I think that's about it. Before we bring up Audrey, one last thing. We've got the Blended Pledge virtual holiday party today, and I'm super excited for that. All right, Audrey, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Awesome. It's so good to have
Mhm.
you back. And we've both got our blended shirts
We're
on for
both repping
Giving
blended for
Tuesday,
Giving
right?
Tuesday. Yeah.
All right. So, for anybody who doesn't know who you are, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and what's going on today. Because I think you've got a big event coming up.
I do. Yeah, it'll be interesting if I'm on the show in the next couple of weeks what I'm what I'm going to tell people what I do. But at the moment, I do trade compliance. I do anything related to HS codes and customs, um, import export tax in about 22 countries worldwide. So that keeps me busy day to day. I am the outgoing president of OIT Toronto, which is the Organization for Women in International Trade. We have an international level board, and then we have chapters around the world. We're happy that in the last couple of weeks, I think we're bringing on restarting Chicago. So if you're in Chicago area, Chicago chapter is getting restarted.
Nice.
New chapter in Dallas. If you're here in the U.S., and then we're welcoming Somalia as well, which adds I think 9 chapters in Africa to our group.
Oh,
It's really great. It's networking, it's supporting women advancing their careers, and it's also supporting entrepreneurs and getting access to the knowledge that they need from trade professionals like myself. So yeah.
and what's the event that you've got coming up today?
Tonight, big event. We have our kind of end of the year end wrap up. So this will be my last event of the year. And we have it's really thrilling. We have the British Consul General, Funia Eunice, who is here based in Toronto. And so she's coming to do some remarks. We have Dr. Wendy Sukier of the Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub of Diversity Institute, like just very well known speaker. We have Casey Kundium, who's of B2B Match. And both of them are experts in like entrepreneurship, but also in technology. So
Yeah.
I had a conversation like a couple weeks ago with Wendy Suke about, and especially here in Ontario, especially in Toronto, there's a lot of tech, there's a lot of investment, there's a lot of things happening. There's not a lot of adoption. So we've got it at the research level, we've got it at the high level. We don't have it at the business level of
Mhm.
like, especially underrepresented groups like women or young entrepreneurs adopting that technology. So it'll be interesting
Cool.
conversation.
And it's in person, right? Or is it virtual?
In person, downtown King Street. So yeah,
All right. So if you're in Toronto, you might want
yeah,
to go and check that out. You've got some
yeah,
time a little bit later today. Reach out to Audrey. She'll give you all the details.
hmm
I want to give a shout out to Jennifer. She says hi from Chicago and she's got a freezing emoji. Well, we are freezing here too in Toronto. It's way too cold. And then Charlotte, you said you love our shirts. Well, you can head over to
yeah.
letstalksupplychain.com in the shop so you can get your own shirt and we donate some of that to the Blended Pledge as well.
Mhm.
All right, let's get to our poll and then we're going to talk about a little bit about a market update, a little bit about Giving Tuesday. So this question is kind of about the holiday that the Americans had last week, Thanksgiving. What's the biggest Thanksgiving supply chain challenge? Now, we had almost 130 votes on this one. I think that's 50% said balancing supply with demand. 23% of you said keeping perishables fresh. 21% of you said perfecting last mile delivery. And 6% of you said avoiding turkey shortages. What do you think, Audrey? What was your pick for this one?
Yeah, I think it's a bit niche unless you're in the sort of turkey distribution business. But yeah, I went with keeping perishables fresh. I actually kind of stumbled into this industry. My grandfather was in perishables, so he used to ship oranges and apples and tomatoes and cucumbers and everything all across the world. So I
I
went with
love that.
perishables, but it's a great poll.
Well, and so we ask a question every single Wednesday morning. So if you want to be part of the community conversation, head over to
Mhm.
Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn on a Wednesday morning. But also, we have a brand new live show with PackSafe called
Oh,
Frost Bites, and they're talking about how to keep perishables fresh. They're talking about cold chain. I know it's a really hot topic right now, so
yeah.
just want to share that with you because they should be having a show coming up and make sure to tune in for that one. All
Yeah.
right, why don't you give us a bit of a market update and then we'll go into Giving Tuesday a little bit.
Okay, where to start?
What is happening? What is happening? What is not
Where to
happening?
start? What is not happening? I mean, we've had quite a lot of disruptions, so I'll start maybe with the disruptions we're aware of and have been accommodating for the
Mhm.
last several months. I think we hit the year mark. I've been following Lars Jensen, of course, on LinkedIn with the insights on what's happening in the Red Sea. And I think we hit the year mark of that kind of situation, that conflict. Now, most of the diversions didn't start until last week of December, early January, but we're getting pretty close to that milestone too. So that's ongoing, and there does not seem to be an end in sight to that. The positioning seems to be entrenched. So, we're kind of doing the diversion, and some people might be going through, but make sure you check your marine insurance if you are on vessels that are going through, because the insurance considerations are going to be very different if you're going through that area versus going as a diversion. Panama Canal into the East Coast seems to be okay. The transit and availability capacity, good. We are hearing that the ILA, so the East Coast, which is in the U.S., every single port on that side, Eastern Seaboard, their contract was they negotiated a compensation agreement, and then they left to most of us the most important details for like later in January. So January 15th is the deadline on that. And those negotiations don't seem to be going that well. So there's a lot of people, again, very concerned about what that might look like, right? What might happen. And a full strike, even a couple of days work stoppage, can lead to like 4 to 5 days of then recovery. The dollars that we talk about on the East Coast are pretty high. So watching on that. And then the newest disruption that we're facing is, of course, a kind of reinvigoration on tariffs. So we're hearing a lot about, a new administration, of course, was voted in earlier in November. They take their role in January 20th is that transition. So we're kind of waiting to hear. There's been some pre-talk, which of course sets the market into uncertainty, sets everybody kind of like, there's a little bit of anxiety. There's a lot of kind of panic and overreaction, and really nothing can actually change until January 20th. So some of us are like, that's a 2025 problem. And, we'll kind of adjust our supply chains, redesign, rethink. We can use all the education tools we built in 2018, 2019 on what a tariff is, how it's applied, how you build it into your cost worksheet, those sorts of things, you can kind of refresh, but so that's the latest in disruptions.
Well, there is a lot going on. There's a lot
There's
of thoughts around the tariffs. We're actually going to share an example around cheese a little bit later on in the show about how these things don't really mix very well, and we might not want to go down that route, but we'll get there in just a minute. So it's Giving Tuesday, and so I just wanted to highlight a couple of areas if you are feeling philanthropic and you want to be part of Giving Tuesday. I know for us, we actually donate to a variety of different charities throughout the month, and then of course we've got the nonprofit, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So we actually put out a post just the other day around food waste, a global opportunity to feed millions, and part of this is around smart supply chain solutions and how they can turn waste into nourishment for 870 million people, because we actually have $600 billion in food lost annually. And one of the things that I've been trying to talk to a lot of people about, because I go to a lot of conferences, is the food waste at conferences. What can we do with that? How can we move that through? How can we feed people with the amounts of food that go to waste every single day for conferences and things like that? So just something to think about on Giving Tuesday. If you're thinking about, I know here our food banks, I think the people going to the food banks has gone up by 25% or 30% right now. So there's a lot of people that are in need of food, and so something to think about on Giving Tuesday. And then the other one I just wanted to bring up is obviously Blended Pledge. This is our nonprofit where we give away grants to cover travel expenses so that diverse voices can say yes to speaking engagements, because the number one barrier is travel expenses. And so if you know somebody who's got a speaking engagement coming up or has the opportunity but doesn't know how to fund it, please ask them to go to theblendedpledge.org and apply for a grant. We also take donations through GoFundMe and PayPal. We also do corporate sponsorships as well if you're looking for diversity and inclusion opportunities for 2025 within your organizations. All right, that's it for Giving Tuesday. Let's get to our first article. So our first article is about how Maersk has transformed a warehouse in Chennai in India into a all-woman operated facility. Now they've got, it says it's an all-woman operated facility, but really from what I'm reading in this particular article, it's one complete shift in Chennai. I think they're moving to a little bit more, because that actually only equates to about 21% in that warehouse, women represent 21%. But this is the second one for Maersk. They did another one in India as well, which I believe the whole facility might be women. I'm not entirely sure. What did you think of this particular article? I had a few sort of aha moments with it.
I think it's aggressively looking at what their commitment is to diversity and inclusion, and then, you know, creating these equal opportunities for these women, right? And so they're talking about how they're increasing women's representation at this sort of container freight services from 3% to 13%. And this is, again, these are kind of traditionally male dominated fields. So it's exciting to see that it's not just, administration, housekeeping, or, sort of pick and pack. It's they're moving them into loading, unloading, forklift operations, and some of the more, you know, more skilled, I guess, activities, or different skilled activities.
Yeah, one of the things that I didn't realize that was that India actually has a program, or, something that they're working towards
Policy.
to
Yeah.
actually bring forward equal opportunities for
Hmm.
women in India, which I had absolutely no idea about,
Hmm.
which I think
Yeah,
is
I think each country kind of has their own sort of policy movements, and it's interesting. Like, we don't necessarily get a full view on what those are. I mean, if you're here in Canada, you might be familiar with the gender lens plus kind of approach. But yeah, every country is kind of has their own different take on what that looks like.
yeah, and I thought that was really cool because we talk
Hmm.
about here how it's gonna take 140 years for us to be, in parity from, I think, like a
A
salary.
wage
So
perspective. Yeah, it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly.
But if you've got the government behind you, and they're partnering with companies like a Maersk to be able to at least transition some of the operations, some of the shifts to those equal opportunities. And also, what I didn't realize too, so Christopher Cook of Maersk says that they're setting new standards in the industry. And they're actually going a little bit beyond that, because they're going to the university and college level, and they're
Yeah.
making sure that people are being trained in customs and operations and operating machinery
Seafaring.
and
Yeah.
seafarers, actually, which
Yeah.
was another key
Yeah.
point that I thought there as well. But one of the things that they also mentioned in the article is that this shift and turning and moving towards, a commitment to an all women operation
Hmm.
improves productivity and operational efficiency, which is something
Mm.
that we talk about on a lot of our shows.
Yes.
But we're talking about a technology lens.
Hmm.
So it's interesting to
Yes.
see how this can also drive improved productivity and operational efficiency. So when you put the two together, technology,
Yeah.
women on, all women shifts, et
Yeah.
cetera,
Yeah.
it's going to go
Yeah.
through the
And
roof.
not to be that girl, but yeah, when you look at the opportunities of diversity inclusion, and actually following a true merit-based system where you're giving people the opportunity to fit themselves in the right skill set and
Mhm.
in the right role, then yes, your productivity is going to be optimized. So
It's
I'll
true.
be that
True.
person today.
True, true, true. All right. Let's get to our second article. And so we're talking about supply chain forecast, navigating the future with innovation and resilience. What do you think 2025 is going to look like? Now, I just recorded an episode with Richard and Nicole from SAP about the future of
Nice.
supply chain. And so I was able to share a few of my thoughts on this. And if anybody's in the audience wants to share some of your predictions for 2025, because let's face it, nobody has a crystal ball. And we all have an idea of what we're going to focus on, or what we think is going to come up the pipe for us. And that looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I want to hear from you in the comments. What are your
Yeah.
predictions? What do you think? Audrey, what do you think about some of these predictions, and where are they on your radar?
I think these were really solid, and I think they carry through, because the idea of like disruptions, they're different every time. Um, I think from 2020 we've seen this. We can think of 2025 now as we're halfway through a decade, right?
Mhm.
And we can think that you're progressing through a decade's worth of kind of changes, or if you want to take a longer view of things, right? Because we want to move away to the situation at hand, because often we can find that there's themes in things like a Panama disruption and a Red Sea disruption. The theme is that it's both canals and it's shortcuts. right? So you're changing your route, you're diverting. I think what they've listed here, like navigating the disruptions. Disruption is going to happen. Yes, there's some piece of it that has to be address the specificity of that disruption, but there's also the concept that resiliency as a whole, can help you weather different kinds of disruptions at the same time and not get caught up in reacting to a particular kind.
Mhm.
And then the other thing, cybersecurity, that's huge.
Mhm.
We've seen over the past year, attacks on municipal infrastructure. I think there was an attack on Chicago, affecting their lights or affecting their hospitals. So we have these kinds of, we've seen in 2021 and 2022, it was directly on freight forwarders. So their operations were shut down for a period of time. So that is still very real. And I think too, Sarah, with cybersecurity, I know a couple of people whose companies have had ransomware. That company does not talk about it. They're not, there's been some forwarders brave enough to be like, yeah, it was ransomware, it was cybersecurity, it was a breach, right? But most companies aren't reporting it to the news anyways, right? So it's very private. So it's a little bit hard, I think, for people to appreciate that quite likely more companies than we think have had some sort of issue. So,
Do you know where they do talk about it? The
where?
NMFTA cybersecurity conference. And I
Conference,
and I
yeah,
talk about this a
yeah,
lot, and the reason why I do is because it's the only one out there that's specific for
yeah,
transportation,
yeah,
but a lot of these things you can't actually talk about in public.
no, no,
And so when
no,
you get together with peers and you're able to actually share what actually transpired and happened
yeah,
in a safe space, which is
yeah,
what's created at that conference, it makes a huge difference because then you
yeah,
don't feel alone and you can be
no,
better prepared for what's going to come down the pipe. So you're right.
agreed.
Cybersecurity is a really big challenge that I think we
Yeah,
all need to think about. We're all
yeah,
interconnected in some way, and
yeah.
it's going to impact. Like, where does that impact come from? And I think the other part of that is risk, right? I always talk about where do you
Always
spend your
risk.
risk dollars?
Yeah,
But and I think a lot of people are like, I need to make the perfect decision. There is
yeah.
no perfect decision
There's no
when it
perfect
comes to
decision.
risk. It's really just a
No.
matter of what are you willing to do and what are you not willing to do? And that is the right decision for you in that particular moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think navigating that risk and making sure that we're not overwhelming each other with making that perfect decision. I think the other things that they talked about was ESG and sustainability. Now, this kind of has taken a bit of a backseat, I feel, in 2024. And
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like it's too serious. I mean, sustainability is a serious concept, but I also feel like we can have fun with it. I also feel like supply chains are a lot of fun, and we need to bring back some of those good vibes, some of the ways that we're talking about it, so that people do get excited about it again and not just think about it as another to do and something we have to do. So, some of the things that I shared on the podcast with SAP was, talking about starting with transparency, no secrets, no surprises, right? Track everything. What does that look like? How do you do that? Empower green champions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Green champions internally, but then who are those green champions at your suppliers as well? And circular economy can be infinite good vibes. You know what I mean? Like, think of this as the reuse, recycle, and make it fabulous philosophy. Like, why can't we do this? We should be doing this, right? How do we do that with our programs? And I think data really at the end of the day can be your eco superpower, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? They hold the secrets to cutting waste and emissions. They help you track and measure and share progress. And then I think, talking about your sustainability goals, like brag about them just a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, just saying that, oh, we're trying. I mean, okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
But if you've got a big goal and you're going bold, brag about it and have
yeah,
fun with it. But also
yeah,
sustainability can spark joy. So find out what is important to people and go with it. Anyways, just a few of my
yeah.
thoughts on that.
No, and I think it's an avenue too where it's gotten sort of like, oh, it's a lot of work. And you're like, it's problem solving. This is an industry of problem
This is
solvers.
what we like to do.
Solve the problem. Like, and there's so many different ways to approach it. But I think abandoning it because it got a little bit hard,
I mean, it is
I
hard.
don't know.
It's
I'm an
easy
Aries, like
though.
push through. Like let's get this, let's get Let's get it figured out.
All right. So last but not least, we do have to get to our
Our
last
cheesy
cheesy
cheese.
article. I'm sorry, I had to do it because
Cheese
what I
podcast.
didn't know was, first of all, there's a World Cheese Awards, and
Okay, who
apparently
knew?
it happens in Europe every single year. And it is very, very, it's a really big deal in the industry, because if
Yeah.
you get named as the cheese of the year, I mean, it's all over for you. You are just, sales are skyrocketing, everything happens. What I also didn't realize is there's what's called a real cheese project. And I just loved reading through this because there's so many things about cheese I didn't know. But what happens with this event is they get a special license to bring the cheese in for the particular event. What happened was that the British cheese, and we're talking 252 cheeses from 67 makers, were stuck in customs and not able to go to this event. What did you think of this? I've got a couple of extra thoughts, which I'll share in a second. But what do you think?
Yeah, it's a challenge of some people's own making. So we've created a hard border, and there's different
Mhm.
rules than there were 4 years ago. So that's to be taken into consideration. But I think, yeah, when they even mentioned that countries where it is typically harder to import did not have a problem. So,
Well,
um,
okay, let's be fair. The countries that didn't have a problem getting their cheese to the event, most of
yeah.
them were from European countries, and so they're
Mhm.
part of the EU. What happened was, for the British cheeses, is obviously with Brexit, like you said, we made hard borders,
Mhm.
and these are some of the consequences. So, one of the comments was damage through export control. And my
Yeah.
question is, tariffs, anyone?
Yeah.
Let's break this down, right? Because if you're going to impose tariffs on your partners, Canada
Yeah.
and Mexico, these are some of the consequences that we might not think about if that happens.
Mhm.
Because what happens with Brexit is they took all of their partners and said, "No, thank you.
Yeah.
Shut the borders," and this is just one of the consequences of
Mhm.
what happened that I don't think anybody saw coming. I mean, who saw cheese
Yeah.
being stuck in customs and not given their chance to
Well,
win?
especially since they know what their product is, right? So it seems too like there was a misapplication
Mm,
of, like, the HS code was, not quite correct, or the application of duties. They were like, well, no, it falls under free trade because the UK and EU do have a free trade agreement, and so tariffs were being applied. And of course, if it's cheese, it could be like 30% or something insane. So then the vendor who's trying to ship it through, the exporter or the importer, is like, well, I'm not paying 30% on the value of this like rare special like $800, you know,
right.
um, cheese. So,
This brings up
uh,
another really good point.
mhm.
The more that we change the rules and regulations for border control, the more these things are going to happen, because we actually
Exactly.
can't keep up with all of the changes. So,
No.
I think about importers, right? When
Yeah.
tariffs change and you have to change everything, customs brokers need to
Yeah.
change everything. But then
Exactly.
I kind of, when you were just talking, I was like, wait a second, but the border agents too have to be completely up to date on the changes and what needs to happen and what's
Yeah.
okay and what's not okay and
Yeah.
what do we charge for and what do we don't charge for. And if we're constantly changing them, we're kind of creating our own little mess.
It creates a lot of mess, especially for small businesses.
Yeah, really, really
So
messy.
it's very discouraging if you're
Okay.
if you're an importer or an exporter and considering it. You're like, do I? Or do I
Yeah.
just try to find someone in this market who I can sell extra cheese to?
So let's not go the way of the cheese.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we are up to date. We understand what's going on. But go and check out that article because it's a fun
It was good.
and you'll learn a lot about cheese. Anyways, that's it for us this week. I am going to be back here for Thoughts and Coffee at 10 a.m. Eastern next Tuesday. Not sure who my guest is going to be, so it's going to be a surprise for you and a surprise for me. Audrey, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to everybody in the audience for joining us today as well. We hope you have an amazing week ahead. Ciao.
Thanks, everyone.